The Eagles just had 60,000 people attend a public practice.
Listen, we talking about practice.
I know, it seems crazy, but when you see the work the fellas put in on top of a few Vic Fangio wrinkles from the defense, it makes a little more sense for the hype. And in this video, I'll go over what those changes were, why Jihaad Campbell is proving to be a monster, and show you just how dominant the D-line really can be. Meanwhile, we got some scary news involving Landon Dickerson, but it actually turned out to be the best case scenario. So let's talk about the latest update there, more on the cornerback battle, and a lock for the 53-man roster. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? I'm excited to actually come on here because there was a lot of anxiety, understand that, but the Eagles were back at the link for the first time since the NFC Championship game, and if you were there, you know how dope it was. Although the best news to come to Philly over the last several hours is the update to the Landon Dickerson injury, which we'll get to in just a second. After all, coming off a Super Bowl victory and all the anticipation heading into the season led the Birds to managing a record-breaking crowd with tickets being sold out a week in advance of the open practice. And for those wondering, the number in attendance ended up reaching just over 60,000 fans. Now, the best part to all of this is that the proceeds benefit the Eagles Autism Foundation, and even if you weren't there, you can definitely contribute. Because when you donate or purchase any memorabilia through the link in my description, you'll automatically be entered to win a personalized World Championship ring, 2 50-yard line tickets, and pregame passes for the Bears game on Black Friday, where you'll be presented the ring by owner Jeffrey Lurie. And trust me, as someone who's gotten to try on the ring, that is an opportunity you don't want to pass up on. So like I said, get entered by clicking the link down below there in the description, and you won't regret it because nobody does it like Philly. Something that was pretty obvious already, but always resurfaces as a reminder during the open practice, with the celebration and festivities taking place beforehand, including player introductions for all the starters, which to no surprise, Jalen Hurts received the loudest ovation of them all. I get goosebumps just hearing that, let alone seeing it. However, none of the hype seemed to faze the godfather of the defense, as Vic Fangio was rocking a hoodie and sweatpants on a 90-degree night at the link.
You look a little warm.
It's not hot today. That's a mindset, you know. We're going to play some hot games in September, and if you cave to a hot day in training camp, we're in trouble.
I'm telling you, if Jalen Hurts is breed of one on the offensive side, then that's Vic Fangio on the defense. Of course, he's got his work cut out for him when it comes to the safety spot next to Reed Blankenship and the cornerback 2 spot, something that will become even more evident a little bit later on in the video. But heck, that was with A.J. Brown not being out there on the offense either. Yet the good news was that AJ did get in some limited work at the open practice. And not all that surprising, seeing how I shared his latest progress coming from the work the guys put in back on Saturday. Anyway, still no reason to force anything, which is why despite AJ going through warm-ups, he was officially listed as limited. And the same thing for Zach Bond, who was also limited, but a good sign to see him out there getting some work in. He's been out for over a week with a back injury, but again, it's nothing major. We told you that back from whenever we were at training camp last week. At least he's out there, limited, but getting in some work. Now, as for the guys who began the open practice out, that was wide receiver Elijah Cooks dealing with the shoulder injury he suffered in the preseason opener, as was guard Quinyon Green with the same, plus long snapper Charlie Hewlett is still not practicing with a neck injury, running back Montrell Johnson continues to miss time with a hamstring strain, and defensive tackle Byron Young was out once again due to the groin injury. By the way, you'll notice that wide receiver Terrace Marshall was no longer on the injury report, but that did not stop the Eagles from getting first-team reps for Darius Cooper, with Brooks Cabina sharing that the undrafted free agent has now gotten runs with the first team in multiple practices following his impressive night versus the Bengals on Thursday. In fact, it wasn't just on the offense, as Cooper was the guy who fielded the opening kickoff during the open practice, with Andrew DeCecco sharing that he returned it all the way to the 35-yard line before being tackled by Brandon Johnson, and then actually had another return later that was as good, if not more productive, followed by the 23-year-old being the first one up as a gunner during special teams drills against Kelee Ringo.
How do you tell somebody that you care about deeply, "I told you so"?
The dude is a Swiss Army knife. We said it before, but you can tell the Eagles are incredibly high on Darius Cooper. I mean, it says everything. If you're starting to get special teams drills or special teams reps, remember, that's how you end up making the roster, obviously as a backup because you're not getting a whole lot of starter reps. But they're trying to put him in there. Can he be a returner? Can he be a gunner? Combination of those. Darius Cooper is well on his way to making the roster. At the same time, you're right. I realize that 6 catches for 80-plus yards and a touchdown speaks for itself. However, as hyped as I am to see what Coop does with the offense, let's not get crazy and act like he's battling for the wide receiver 3 spot. Because although Jahan Dotson didn't get as much run on Thursday night, number 2's been Jalen Hurts' number 1 so far throughout camp, thanks to the newfound chemistry that they've showed on more than one occasion, which in case AJ or Smitty were to miss a game, things would be way different this year.
The biggest difference for me, and just being comfortable out here, not worrying about what split I'm in, what I'm doing, knowing exactly where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there, and making plays. He wants to succeed. He doesn't want a drop-off. I feel like, going back to last year when we played Tampa Bay and Smitty and AJ were out, and it was kind of me out there. We didn't have that connection. We didn't. It was, I think, 3 weeks that I had been throwing with them. So, just when those opportunities come, whether those two, someone's not practicing or someone's not playing, feeling like there's no drop-off. I'm going to be in every position. So whether I am the first read or the fourth read, knowing that timing, whether he's working the front side or he's working his footwork to get all the way backside on a route, knowing where I'm supposed to be and when I'm supposed to be there is huge.
Okay, look, it's still pretty unlikely that Dotson gets more than 60 targets if everyone stays healthy. However, I'm still expecting a significant bump in his productivity based on what he revealed during the interview ahead of training camp. Also, just a quick reminder here to make sure and hit that subscribe button if you want a chance to win the signed J-Dot jersey that I got from him last week at camp. By the way, for those curious, I'll be spinning for that Jahan Dotson jersey on my next live stream, so stay tuned. You don't have to be present, but if you are, maybe it helps your luck there. But I will announce it on an upcoming video in case you aren't able to make it. Anyway, back to practice, though. I don't think you can deny Dotson is coming into his own. And we should have known what was in store for the 25-year-old's first Eagles Open practice when he was making those kind of grabs during warm-ups, with Jahan making one of the best catches of the night later on a drive, but don't worry, we'll get there. Now, when it comes to 11-on-11s, Fangio elected to use Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship as the safeties in base, as well as Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at linebacker and Jihaad Campbell at linebacker for the starters. And the first play began with a dump-off to Saquon Barkley, followed by a run on the next play that bounced outside for a small gain. But then Jihaad Campbell completely halted the offense's drive with a sack on Jalen Hurts when he blitzed up the middle and got a free rush, as NFL analysts chimed in to wonder how Philly keeps getting guys like this.
It's completely unfair.
It's really not. The simple truth of it is what Jihaad's agent Nicole Lynn responded with, saying, "Y'all really let Jihaad Campbell fall to the Eagles."
Which was a big mistake. I see that now.
By the way, that's like the 5th or 6th time that we've seen Jihaad Campbell get a sack at camp. I mean, the dude's a mismatch everywhere, but keep an eye out for those blitzes because I don't think teams are going to be prepared for it. Oh yeah, for the record, that sack happened to be on Saquon Barkley as the rookie managed to blow past him on his way to Jalen. And believe it or not, Trotter Jr. did the same thing later, so maybe it wasn't the best night for say in pass protection. Either way, though, it definitely speaks to the ridiculous athleticism because if Saquon Barkley is getting beat by that dude, then you can bet money other teams are gonna struggle there. But to get into the key positional battles of cornerback and safety, Fangio began with Adoree Jackson with a first-team defense and Kelee Ringo with a second-team defense. Now, the second-team defense consisted of Kelee Ringo, Eli Ricks, Andrew Mukuba, and Tristan McCollum for the first series of the evening. Although after Kelee Ringo was flagged for a pass interference against Terrace Marshall deep along the right sideline and the drive eventually ended, it was newcomer Jakorian Bennett who rotated in to take reps with the ones. In fairness, it might have been an early rep where Ringo struggled, but according to Andrew DeCecco and many others as well, Ringo actually played really well beyond that. Like when Tanner McKee later attempted a fade to Terrace Marshall, but Ringo's blanket coverage prevented the completion. And then there was another instance where Ringo locked up Darius Cooper before being able to get a hand up and knock the pass away. He also had decent position on Johnny Wilson over the middle later. So yeah, you love to see him not only win reps, but win reps versus various receivers. At the same time, I understand it, with AJ out, you would have loved to see Kelee getting matched up against Smitty or at least some reps against him, but as we saw all night, Q had him in lockdown. As Q had 2 pass breakups against Smitty, along with countless other instances of forcing Hurts to throw the ball elsewhere. So the first pass breakup came on a back shoulder ball from Jalen, and then the second came on an in-breaking route with Q batting it down. The best part to all of that, though, was that they came on opposite sides of the field, with E.J. Smith even saying that it looks like Q can pretty easily move to both sides of the field and does not look phased one bit. Anyway, while the secondary deserves a lot of praise, the defensive line was wreaking havoc, and no one doing it better than Moro Ojomo, with the 23-year-old generating pressure as he continues to be the biggest game wrecker of camp so far. Yes, I think we all realize a lot of the credit goes to Jalen Carter for taking on the double teams, but Ojomo is taking advantage, with Jimmy Kempski noting that he beat Dickerson on an outside rush for a sack. However, on a rare play when he was doubled, Ojomo actually batted down a pass from Jalen, and then later, for good measure, blew up a run play in the red zone. I mean, it's a little funny to think about getting so excited for a dude who literally has 0 sacks in his career in the regular season. Although registering the most pressures in the Super Bowl and becoming a nightmare for Landon Dickerson to deal with hasn't been a surprise for D-line coach Clint Hurt.
Effort and energy, but from a measurable standpoint, length, violence in his hands, his awareness as a football player to recognize blocking schemes, to communicate protections, where the games are. He's at the point now where he can come to the sideline and be able to tell me, hey, coach, you're sitting on this. What about this? He's starting to turn into a coach on the field with his level of intelligence. So to see that and then his confidence level because he knows he can do those things and he's right when we have those discussions, it's impressive to see him do that now.
I guess conversely, the question is he ready to be a rundown guy?
Yeah, he's an every down player. We don't see him as a role guy.
I'm a guy that's been in coaching, I think, 20-plus years. A brilliant coach, a guy that's coached a ton of players. And, I think one thing that Clint does at an extremely high level is allow us to take ownership in the room and allow us to build from one another. And, if JC is able to tell me something here, I'm able to tell him something here. It's amazing. It's really fun.
At face value, that's pretty crazy because, he's 23 years old, only 456 total snaps played on defense, yet they're talking about Moro Ojomo that way. But at the same time, you just hear him. We've seen him throughout camp. You can tell he's a student of the game. And I'm telling you what, Jalen Carter is making him so much better, which really goes for the entire D-line. They continued to dominate the vast majority of the reps against the first-team offense, resulting in another pass protection sacking Jalen Hurts. As Tom Stakes noted from being at practice, that Eagles front seven is nasty. And they're also fast and smart and basically recognizing everything. Now sure, maybe that's because they've seen a lot of our offense, which is why it'll be a good litmus test to get some action in the joint practices versus the Browns on Wednesday and Thursday. As always, I got you covered there. Just make sure the notifications are on so that you don't miss anything. Look, call it what you want, but Vic and the defense were giving the offense hell most of the night. Of course, I understand some reactions on the flip side because, sometimes we can get emotional, but for the offense, not a lot of motion, very little play action. We didn't really show too many nuances or wrinkles in the offense, but that's typically how these things go, so I'm not just sounding the alarms or freaking out about it. Having said that, it's not like the offense didn't make plays, though. As Anthony DeBona texted me to say Jahan Dotson made one of the greatest sideline toe drags he's ever seen, before the inevitable 1 + 6 = 7 connection beat Cooper DeJean, who was trailing in coverage on a simulated third down play. Okay, to be fair, Jalen Hurts did throw him a perfect ball for a 25-yard touchdown. Yet to be expected, immediately people started analyzing to see if Sidney Brown was the one at fault for being late to provide help over the top. And I don't know, you watch it back and you tell me what you think, but personally, I kind of feel like Coop just bit on the out route and got beat. Also, going back to the play, notice how Cooper DeJean lined up on the outside. I know we don't see that very often, but if CB2 doesn't pan out how we hoped, then maybe that's an alignment that starts to show up more. Again, Ringo played fairly well, and we didn't hear too much about Adoree Jackson. Although, like I mentioned earlier, it still wasn't enough to keep Jakorian Bennett from getting some first-team reps in just his second practice with the Eagles. Meanwhile, Andrew Mukuba got a few snaps with the first-team defense and took advantage of a few reps by making a great play in coverage to force an incompletion.
Oh boy, I've been waiting for this.
I'll tell you what I'd also been waiting for is defensive tackle Gabe Hall to get some more opportunities, because he's made the most of them when he gets them. After all, he was arguably the best interior defensive lineman during the preseason game on Thursday. Plus, he made it a nightmare in the backfield on Sunday night as he racked up multiple tackles for loss. It's just that unfortunately, a couple plays later, he was seen leaving the field after getting his right shoulder checked on by the trainers. We'll keep you posted there along with the other injuries, but I think the main takeaway for the defensive line is that the athleticism and the speed, especially for the front seven group as a whole, I guess you could throw in the linebackers, but the defensive line, the speed and athleticism is just next level. Case in point, like on the play when Jalen Hurts was nearly sacked that led to an interception. So in case you missed it, Jihaad Campbell knifed into the backfield by getting past Saquon Barkley, and then Hurts rolled out to evade him with Jalen Carter closing in. However, QB1's pass got tipped and ended up being picked off by Nolan Smith for the pick six. Okay, seriously, you think teams want to deal with the kind of versatility that the Eagles have on defense? I'm just saying, once the offense got the ball back, the defense continued to assert its dominance. When Moro Ojomo batted down a pass from Hurts, followed by Jihaad Campbell showing exactly why he's going to be a starter on week 1, stopping Saquon Barkley for a short gain. And then again, the very next play is the first-round pick made the tackle. Although the part I want you to see is the physicality that the linebacker plays with. I mean, we don't want anyone getting hurt out there, but that's Cam Jurgens that Jihaad just manhandled and threw to the ground. I mean, we've seen this in the past, and how often does this hold true, but some rookies need some time to adjust to the NFL game, the physicality, the speed, everything else there, and then some of them just show up from day one. And Jihaad Campbell clearly falls in the latter of that category. Now, eventually, the offense did finally settle in a bit and move the ball, getting into the red zone where Hurts found Dallas Goedert on back-to-back throws. And then Saquon Barkley capped it off with a touchdown run. They then ran it back, however, where on the next possession, Jihaad Campbell rushed off the edge, but Jalen outran him, before Sidney Brown came up with a good pass breakup on a throw to Dallas Goedert to prevent a touchdown, followed by another play by guess who? Jihaad Campbell. Come on, the fact that he moved down to the edge spot, recognized the run, and was able to get back to the middle to fill the hole and make the stop. I mean, I'm a fan of Jeremiah Trotter Jr., but it's almost impossible for me to see a scenario where Jihaad isn't starting week 1. Especially with the offense trying Saquon again, Ojomo flying through to wreck the play, and the Rook being there to clean up. If you weren't convinced already, the defense this season is going to be crazy. You're right, though, it's not like we can read a ton into the outing on Sunday. But I will say that I can't wait to see the Eagles' defense going full speed and fully unleashed by Fangio. Overall, for those counting, Jihaad Campbell, Moro Ojomo, Quinyon Mitchell, those are the 3 guys that stood out clearly above the rest. It's just unfortunately that on one of the final plays of practice, Eagles starting left guard Landon Dickerson went down with an injury to his right leg. Now, thankfully, Landon eventually got up and was able to limp off with the help of trainers. But he was having trouble putting weight on his leg, which eventually caused Philly to take him into the locker room on a cart. Of course, I should point out that it was not Jihaad Campbell's fault, despite some idiotic rumors some people wanted to start there. I tweeted it out if you really want to check it out and care for it, but honestly, the biggest and most important thing is Landon being healthy, and thankfully, Philly dodged a bullet. Because Adam Schefter reported that Landon Dickerson actually tore his meniscus and would require surgery. However, not long after, Jeff McClain followed up to share that Landon will have surgery later this week and then immediately begin rehab. And believe it or not, the designation is for him to be week to week with a very real chance that Landon is ready to go by the start of the regular season.
Curse is broken, people! Oh, there is a God!
Come on, I don't have to tell you how big of news this is. I mean, we were literally staring at the idea of Kenyon Green or Matt Pryor being the right guard, and no offense to him. Although yes, you're right that Stoutland probably could have worked wonders. Yet we're also talking about one of the best right guards in football. So the fact that he should be healthy by the start of the regular season, or at least good to go by then, is almost like cheating. Sorry, it's just that I was halfway prepping to get on here and honestly try to talk through scenarios of like living or life without Landon Dickerson, at least for a sizable chunk of the season. Could have been the whole season, but to have him back is huge. And then you continue to look at this. I mean, Jihaad Campbell wasn't supposed to be ready for the regular season. He should be ready for week 1. Nakobe Dean is transitioning the right way. A.J. Brown just recently got back. And yes, thankfully, Landon Dickerson will be okay. So it's great news all around. But by the way, if you're wondering how on earth Landon could come back that quickly from a torn meniscus, remember, this was the same dude who played on a badly injured knee during the NFC Championship game. Heck, he's only missed 1 game due to injury during the last 3 seasons. I don't know, we keep talking about injuries being the one thing or the main thing that could derail this squad. So again, you can't overstate how important this is and how big it is to get Landon back. So like I say, that is hype, and also back to a couple other hype items from open practice. It was cool seeing Jalen Hurts spending a ton of time after practice signing for fans. Plus a couple other takeaways for you. Jake Elliott converted 2 field goals, one on a 39-yarder and then another attempt for 47 yards. Kylen Granson made a handful of catches, and he's been the best of the rest of the tight ends, and probably separated himself even more from E.J. Jenkins and Harrison Bryant as the tight end 3. Meanwhile, undrafted free agent wide receiver Taylor Morin had multiple touchdown catches and seems like a lock at the very least to make the practice squad. So there you go. Lots to unpack from open practice. If you were there, obviously let us know your thoughts in the comments. Even if you weren't, I'm curious your takeaways, but let me know biggest winners, losers, thoughts there. Was the offense as bad as it seemed, or, just a little extra insights? Also, next up for the Eagles is a practice Tuesday, and I'll have a recap then, as well as a live stream with Anthony DeBona to break down everything he saw from the latest practice. As always, do me a favor, drop a like if you haven't already on this one. Almost to 135,000 subscribers. I'll catch you on the next one. This has been the Philly Special.
Like I should feel like I should go.